Okay, last night we began the Memches Devarim, the 48 ways that a person is going to be kaina, that they'll acquire the Torah. And we gave the Hakdam the introduction, and tonight we begin the 48 ways that a person needs to work on during this time of Sfiras HaOmer to be able to be worthy and zeicher to receive the Torah on Shavuos. So the Gemara says like this. The Mishnah or the Brisa says the following. The first of the 48 ways that a person needs to work on in order to acquire the Torah is something called Ve'eluhein b'Talmud. He has to learn. He can't acquire Torah unless you're actually learning. So the Tiferes Yisrael writes, Divrei Torah tzarich sheyikablu mirav. You need to learn Torah from a Rebbe. It's not something that you can just learn by yourself. V'yevshar le'otziyam al yedei sichloi kishar chachmos. It's not something that you could come up with on your own, like other kind of chachmas, other kind of wisdoms and intellect that is out there in the world. The Torah is something that there's a Messiah, which means that it goes back to your Rebbe, which goes back to his Rebbe, which goes back to his Rebbe, which goes back to our Sinai, and which goes back to HaKadosh Baruch who gave it over to Moshe Rabbeinu. Which means that the only way that a person can really learn Torah in this world is he has somebody that he's going to learn the Torah from. And that's why the Mefarshim say over here as well, there's such a thing as learning it out of Svarim. If you don't have a Rebbe, at least learn it from a Sefer. Don't make up the Torah by yourself. Learn it out from a Sefer. But even there they say that a Sefer, a book itself, is not as good as the Rebbe. Because when you're learning the Sefer, you're learning inside, you're learning by yourself. How can you be sure that you're learning everything you're supposed to learn out of that particular work, that sefer that you're learning? How do you know that you understand the pshat that the Chasam Sofer says on that pasuk in the parsha? How do you know? How do you know you understand the Rashba and that sugya? How do you know? But if you have a Rebbe, and he writes over here, the Mefarshim bring down, and you can listen the way that he's saying over, and you can see his intonations, and you see even his hand movements and gesticulations, whatever that word is, Mark. Yeah? What's the word? There you go, very good. And you see the way in which his words of Torah are being given over, so then you're going to be able to learn the Torah that much better. And the Mefarshim right over here as well, that's why we call Torah scholars in Hebrew, we call them Talmidei Chachamim, students of wisdom. A person who wants to acquire Chachmas HaTorah, the wisdom of the Torah, he has to look at himself always in his life as a student of the Chachma, of the wisdom of the Torah. And someone that is a Talmid Chacham, someone that is a student of wisdom, so it doesn't matter how much he knows, how many years he has been learning, how many shiurim he has given, it doesn't matter because he always has what? To learn from somebody else, either from the words in the Sefer itself, from the Gemara, from the Mishnah, from the Chumash, from the Psukim, or from a Rebbe that he's going to have on top of him, and therefore he's always growing and advancing in his Torah study. The next one is B'shmiyas ha'oizen. A person has to learn how to be shmiyas ba'oizen, has to learn how to listen with his ear. Says the Tiferes Yisrael, well, what other part of your body are you listening with? Shmiyas ha'oizen, you're listening with your ear. Of course you're listening with your ear. You're not listening with your nose. You're not listening with your forehead. What does it mean that you're listening with your ear? Of course you're listening. So he writes, the reason that it says that you have to listen ha'oizen with your ear, because it's talking about you have to listen very carefully to the words of Torah. You have to be miyached, you have to set aside your ear, so to speak, in order to make it something that is receptive to hearing the words of Torah the way that they're being said. When he brings down over here by the Mefarshim, you have to be careful what you allow your ears to listen to. If your ears are trained to listen to Dvarim B'Telim, to listen to nonsense, there's a lot of nonsense that is out there in the world. We'll keep all the examples into ourselves, but there's plenty of nonsense that is out there in the world. If your ears are used to listening to nonsense on a very regular basis, then when the words of Torah are trying to enter into those oiznayim, into those ears, it's very difficult. Because you have like deflection that's going on. It's used to hearing shtus, and now you're trying to put emes inside of there, the emes has a very hard time getting inside of the ears. And therefore he writes that when it comes to shmias ha'ozen, that the ear that you are utilizing has to be an ear that is trained to hear the right things, and we have to try to keep our ears away from hearing the wrong things. And the third one that we'll see tonight is the following, and that is ba'arichas swasayim, that a person needs to move their lips when they are learning. Says the Tiferes Yisrael, she'shigurim bifiv. The words of Torah should be something that are sugar, they are constant, or they are smooth, they are always there inside of your mouth. Just like when you received it from your Rebbe's words were always clear, the words were always in his mouth, he always had the Chachmas HaTorah there. When you're learning from the Rav, which you have to learn from, that's the way that we become Talmidei Chachamim, so your words should be like that as well. Or, as we said, at least the words of the Sefer that you're learning out, they should also be clear in your mouth. If you learn the words in a Sefer clearly, then it turns out that the Mechaber, the author of that Sefer, he's actually teaching you. So if you open up a Pirkei Avos and you start learning with the Mefarshim that are there, and you understand the words of those Mefarshim clearly, so then whether it's the Maral, the Tiferes Yisrael, it's a Rashi, so then Rashi just became your Rebbe. The Tiferes Yisrael is your Rebbe. And so therefore a person has to make great efforts if they want to really be someone that's koineh, that's going to acquire the Torah for themselves, to work on these things. These are only 3 of the 48. We have 45 left. Be'ez Hashem, Hashem will give us the siyata d'shemai to try to finish this list before the Yom Tov of Shavuos comes upon us. L'toiva, Amen.